The ceiling came down in pieces. That's what I remember most clearly. Not the explosion, not the screaming. Just watching chunks of concrete and plaster fall in slow motion like snow, except snow doesn't crush you. Snow doesn't bury you alive. My name is Friedrich Hartmann, and I'm the only survivor of what the Allies called the Berlin airstrike of April 28, 1945. But I didn't survive it. Not really. I spent 12 days trapped in the ruins with the dead, and what came out of that basement wasn't the same man who went in. I was 19 years old, barely old enough to shave, but old enough to die for the fatherland. That's what they told us anyway. I'd been conscripted 8 months earlier, pulled from my university studies to defend Berlin against the Soviet advance. By April 1945, we all knew it was over. The Reich was collapsing. The Führer was hiding in his bunker. The Red Army was blocks away. But we fought anyway because what else could we do? Surrender meant the Gulag, or worse. My unit, what was left of it, had taken shelter in the basement of an apartment building in the Mitte district. There were 23 of us, mostly young conscripts like me. A few older men, veterans from the Eastern Front who'd seen things that made their eyes hollow. Our commander was Hauptmann Weber, a career soldier who still believed we could turn the tide. Still believed in victory even as the city burned around us. The building above us was already half destroyed. 3 floors had collapsed during a Soviet artillery barrage 2 days earlier, but the basement was intact, solid. Weber said it was the safest place in the sector, said we'd wait there for reinforcements. We all knew reinforcements weren't coming, but we waited anyway. April 28th was a Tuesday. I remember because my mother's birthday was on a Tuesday that year, and I'd been thinking about her, wondering if she was still alive in Hamburg, wondering if I'd ever see her again. Probably not. The Allies were bombing Hamburg into dust. Berlin was already dust. Germany was becoming a graveyard. The airstrike came without warning. No sirens, no time to brace, just the sudden, overwhelming sound of bombers overhead. Then the whistle of falling bombs. Then the world exploding. The first bomb hit the building next to ours. I felt the shockwave through the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. Someone started praying. Then the second bomb hit. Our building. Direct hit. The sound was beyond description, beyond anything human ears should hear. The entire structure above us just ceased to exist, turned to rubble in an instant. And then it all came down on top of us. I don't remember the impact. My brain shut off. Self-preservation. When I came to, everything was dark. Completely, absolutely dark. The kind of darkness that makes you wonder if you've gone blind. I tried to move and couldn't. Something heavy was pinning my legs. My left arm was trapped under debris. I could move my right arm, my head, but that was it. I started to panic, started hyperventilating. But then I heard it, breathing. Someone else was alive. I called out in the darkness, asked if anyone could hear me. A voice answered. Schmidt, young kid from Bavaria, barely 18. He said he was trapped too, said he couldn't feel his legs. Over the next hour we found 5 others, 5 voices in the darkness, all trapped, all injured. The rest were silent, either dead from the impact or buried too deep to hear. We called for them anyway, called until our voices went hoarse. But 18 men never answered, so there were 7 of us. 7 survivors in what was left of the basement, buried under tons of rubble, in a city under siege, with no one coming to help us. The arithmetic of our situation was simple. We were going to die down there. It was just a question of when. The first day was spent trying to free ourselves, using our hands to dig through debris in the pitch darkness, moving rocks and broken concrete and pieces of furniture. Schmidt and I were closest to each other. We worked together, him digging toward me digging toward him. After 6 hours, we could touch hands. After 10, I'd freed my legs and crawled to where he was. His legs were crushed under a massive beam. In the dark, I couldn't see how bad it was, but I could feel the blood, could hear him trying not to scream when I touched the wounds. We needed light, needed to see what we were dealing with. I found my lighter in my pocket. Miracle it still worked, flicked it on, I wish I hadn't. Schmidt's legs were destroyed, completely destroyed. Even if we could move the beam, even if we could get him out, he'd never walk again. And we were trapped in a basement with no medical supplies, no food, no water. I looked at his face in the flickering light. He was crying silently. He knew. I used the light sparingly after that, only when absolutely necessary. We needed to save the fuel. But in those brief moments of illumination, I saw our tomb. We were in a pocket, maybe 10 feet across. The ceiling above us was a tangle of beams and concrete. The walls had collapsed inward. There was no obvious way out. Just debris in every direction. The others were scattered around the space. Müller was trapped under rubble, only his upper body free. His breathing was wet, labored, probably punctured lung. He died on the second day. Just stopped breathing while we were talking to him. We couldn't even move his body. Just had to leave him there, propped against the debris that killed him. Water became the immediate problem. We had none. Our canteens had been scattered or buried in the collapse. I found one, half full, wedged under some rubble. We rationed it. 1 capful per person per day. It wasn't enough. Nowhere close to enough. But it was all we had. On the 3rd day, we heard it. Water dripping. Somewhere in the darkness, water was leaking through the ruins. We followed the sound, found a small stream trickling down a crack in what was left of the wall. It tasted like rust and concrete, but it was water. We took turns pressing our mouths to the crack, drinking as much as we could. That water saved us. Without it, we'd have been dead in days. Food was a different problem. We had none. Some of us had been eating when the bombs hit. We searched the debris by feel, found a few pieces of bread, a crushed tin of meat paste. We divided it equally. 6 men, 6 portions. Schmidt couldn't eat his. Gave it to me. Said he wasn't hungry. We both knew what that meant. The darkness played tricks on your mind. Without light, without any way to mark time, you lost track. Lost yourself. I'd close my eyes and couldn't tell if I was asleep or awake. The boundary between consciousness and unconsciousness blurred. I had conversations with people who weren't there. My mother, my younger sister, friends who'd died on the Eastern Front. They felt real. More real than the darkness. On the 4th day, or what I thought was the 4th day, we heard sounds from above. Voices, movement. Hope surged through us. We screamed, pounded on the debris, yelled until our throats bled. The sounds stopped, came back, stopped again. Then nothing. Either they couldn't hear us, or they'd moved on. Or they were Soviets, and they weren't interested in rescuing German soldiers. Schmidt died on the 5th day. The infection from his legs had spread. He'd been feverish, delirious, talking to people who weren't there, calling for his mother. I held his hand in the darkness while he faded, felt his grip weaken, felt his breathing slow. Then stop. I kept holding his hand for a while after. Didn't want him to be alone in those final moments, even though he probably didn't know I was there. That left 5 of us. Weber was trapped in a corner, his back broken, he could barely move, but he was conscious, alert. He took command even from his position, told us what to do, how to organize our efforts. Military training dies hard. Even buried alive, he was still a soldier. We spent days trying to dig our way out, following the airflow, assuming fresh air meant an opening somewhere. We worked in shifts, one person digging while others rested, passing debris hand to hand in the darkness, making millimeters of progress that felt like miles. My hands bled constantly, the skin peeled away until I was digging with raw flesh, but I kept going. What else could I do? On the 7th day, Becker lost his mind, just snapped. Started screaming that we were already dead, that this was hell, that we were being punished for our sins. He tried to claw his way through solid concrete with his bare hands. Weber tried to calm him down, but Becker was beyond reason. He screamed for hours. Then he just stopped, went silent. We heard him moving in the darkness, muttering to himself. Then nothing. We found his body the next morning. He'd found a piece of rebar and opened his wrists. Couldn't take it anymore. Chose his own end. 4 of us left. Weber, Krantz, Hoffman and me. We were running out of strength, running out of hope. The water kept us alive, but we were starving. The hunger was constant, gnawing. My body was eating itself. I could feel my muscles wasting away. Could feel my strength leaving day by day. Weber's infection got worse. The smell was terrible in the confined space. Rotting flesh. He knew he was dying. Told us not to waste energy trying to free him. Told us to focus on digging. on surviving. He died on the 10th day, quietly. I didn't even know he was gone until I called to him and got no answer. 3 of us, then 2. Hoffman had a head injury we didn't know about. He seemed fine at first, but on the 11th day he started having seizures, convulsing in the darkness while Krantz and I held him down, tried to keep him from hurting himself. The seizures got worse, more frequent. He didn't wake up from the last one. Just me and Krantz. 2 19-year-old boys in a tomb of our own making. We didn't talk much by then. Too weak, too tired. We just kept digging, kept pushing debris aside, kept following the airflow, kept surviving because stopping meant accepting death, and we weren't ready for that yet. On the 12th day, my hand broke through, pushed aside a piece of concrete and felt nothing beyond it. Open air, space, light, actual daylight, filtering through a gap. I started crying, couldn't help it. 12 days in absolute darkness, and suddenly there was light. Beautiful, painful, overwhelming light. Krantz and I widened the gap, pushed and pulled debris until there was a hole big enough to crawl through. I went first, squeezed through the narrow opening, and emerged into what was left of Berlin. The city was unrecognizable. Everything was rubble, every building destroyed, smoke rising from 1,000 fires. The sky was grey with ash, and it was so quiet. The bombing had stopped. The artillery had stopped. The battle was over. I pulled Krantz through behind me. We collapsed on the rubble, too weak to move, too stunned to process what we were seeing. After 12 days in darkness, the world above was alien, changed, dead. Soviet soldiers found us an hour later. I thought they'd shoot us. Prisoners weren't always taken in those final days of the war. But they didn't. They gave us water, gave us bread, took us to a field hospital. We were so emaciated, so dehydrated, that the doctors weren't sure we'd make it. But we did. Krantz and I, the only survivors of that basement. I spent 3 months in a Soviet POW camp. It was hard, brutal at times, but after 12 days buried alive, I could handle anything. I survived. Was released in August after the surrender was finalized, made my way back to Hamburg, found my mother's building destroyed, spent weeks searching before I found her in a displaced persons camp. She didn't recognize me at first. I'd lost 40 pounds, looked like a skeleton. But when I spoke, when she heard my voice, she knew. I'm 79 years old now. The war ended 79 years ago. I've lived a long life. Got married, had children, grandchildren. Worked as a teacher for 40 years. Normal, peaceful things. But I never forgot those 12 days. Never forgot the darkness. Never forgot the men who died beside me in that basement while I lived. People ask me why I survived. Why me and not Schmidt or Weber or the others? I don't have an answer. Luck maybe, random chance. I was trapped in a position where I could dig, where I could reach the water. Small things that made the difference between life and death. But it doesn't feel like luck. It feels like I stole something that belonged to someone else. The nightmares faded over the years. Now they only come occasionally. Dreams where I'm back in the darkness, where the ceiling is pressing down, where I can hear Schmidt calling for his mother, where I'm digging and digging but never getting anywhere. I wake up gasping, confused about where I am. My wife used to comfort me. She passed away 5 years ago. Now I just lie there in the dark, reminding myself that I'm free, that the war ended, that I made it out. I went back to Berlin once. In 1989, after the wall came down, tried to find the building where we'd been trapped, but the entire block had been rebuilt. Modern apartments where ruins used to be. No trace of what happened there, no memorial, no marker. Just new buildings full of people who didn't know, didn't remember. Maybe that's better. Maybe the dead should stay buried. But I remember. I carry those 12 days with me, carry the weight of 7 men who didn't make it out, carry the guilt of surviving when better men than me didn't. War is not glorious. It's not heroic. It's young men dying in darkness, afraid and alone, far from home. It's surviving when you shouldn't, and spending the rest of your life wondering why. It's learning that humans can endure things that should kill us, but endurance isn't the same as living. I spent 12 days in the ruins of Berlin, 12 days that taught me the price of war, the cost of nationalism, the value of every single breath. I came out of that basement changed, broken in ways that never fully healed, but alive. And I've tried to make that mean something. Tried to honor the men who died by living well, by choosing peace, by telling this story so maybe future generations will understand what war really costs. That's what happened to the only survivor of the Berlin airstrike. I spent 12 days buried alive with the dead, and when I finally saw daylight again, I understood that survival is both a gift and a burden. You carry it forward, every day, trying to make it mean something, trying to justify why you lived when others didn't. I'm still carrying it, still trying, still here, and I will always remember,